恭喜发财. If you understood what I just said, chances are you're celebrating Chinese New Year today. And if you didn't, you're still welcome to celebrate Chinese New Year with us. Actually, it's properly referred to as the Lunar New Year, which is different from January 1st, the New Year day in the solar calendar. Lunar New Year is celebrated by many Asian and some non-Asian countries around the world, not just China. But living in Canada almost my whole life, I've only ever known it as Chinese New Year. When I take off my North American lens and look through a global lens, I realize that excludes countries like Korea, Vietnam, and Tibet, just to name a few. Unfortunately, I don't know enough yet about Lunar New Year traditions in those countries to speak meaningfully about them. So instead, I'd like to share with you some of the ways that my family and people in Hong Kong celebrate. For that reason, I'll refer to it as Chinese New Year in this video. I don't speak for all Chinese people, and the Chinese words I'll be using are in the Cantonese dialect, the most common dialect in Hong Kong. The first thing to know is that Chinese New Year is all about family. In fact, let's all change our lenses together and get the picture of Western New Year completely out of our head. Instead, imagine this scene. Chinese New Year's Eve is time for family gathering over dinner. This is called Qunlin Fan. Everyone goes home, migrant workers leave the city and return to their hometowns so that family can be together. We have a big feast with symbolic foods that represent good fortune and prosperity for the coming year. The feeling of Qunlin Fan is closer to a North American Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner at home than a big party. After Qunlin Fan, if you're not in a food coma from all the delicious eating, you might go out to Hang Lin Xiu. Hang Lin Xiu is a bustling evening of walking the street markets and shopping. Part of ringing in the new year is getting rid of the old and inviting in a fresh start and good fortune. And that's symbolized by having new things. Flowers and new clothes are the most common purchases. I'll never forget the incredible flower markets in the streets of Hong Kong, as you can see here. Some really colorful and unique flowers are there, unlike anything I've seen in North America. Hang Lin Xiu can go on until well after midnight, so it's usually a late start on New Year's Day. Living in Canada, our Chinese New Year's Eve was always a time to call my family in Hong Kong because it's already their New Year's Day. In Hong Kong, my aunt and uncle would be frying the lo bak go and lin go, again, traditional foods eaten during New Year's, and my cousins would be arriving to pay their respects to the elders and offer New Year's greetings. There are a million different ways to wish each other well for a new year, and none of them translate into Happy New Year in English. It's really hard to translate them all. The Chinese language is very witty, very poetic, and very hard to learn. Like most immigrant kids, I have to ask my parents every year, what are the proper things to say? There are different greetings for people who are older than you, younger than you, people who are working, students, etc. I'll practice now some of these greetings with you in Cantonese and beg forgiveness from my family and other Chinese people if I've butchered them. Here you can see some of these traditional Chinese greetings. And in traditional Chinese, we read from right to left and top to bottom. So starting from the right, 恭喜發財, wishing you great happiness and prosperity. 身體健康, may you have good health. 心想事成, may you receive all your heart's desires. 年年有餘, may you have wealth and abundance every year. And that's about all I can say without completely embarrassing myself. As I mentioned, there are tons more. And here are some of those greetings written in lights on buildings in Hong Kong Harbor, something I was privileged to see when I went back for a visit several years ago. Visiting family and friends to offer these greetings and wish each other well for the new year continue throughout the New Year week. These visits include extended family all over the city, so you can imagine that it would take the whole week to see everyone. In Cantonese, we refer to 초약, 초이, 초삼, the first, second, and third, and so on, days of the new year. Sometimes there's activities associated with each of these days. For example, on the second day of the new year, 초이, it's traditional to have 호일인판. 호일인판, literally translated, is a dinner to open the new year. It's also a time of family togetherness. The customs and traditions I've shared with you are just a sample of what happens during Chinese New Year. There's so many more that can't fit in a 10-minute video. I hope this begins to give you a sense of the meaning and significance behind this holiday. In my opinion, the depth of sentiment and family importance is lost in translation when calling it New Year and looking at it through a North American or European lens. Through that lens, it would be closer to Thanksgiving or even a secular Christmas, which is about love, community, and joy. Gift giving and feasting are simply ways that we celebrate it. So when you think about the time off from work needed to honor Lunar New Year, you can understand why in China, it's a minimum 5-day holiday. Besides the travel to hometowns, often the only time of year where the chunk of time needed for the long journey is available, people want to spend that time with family and friends. American Thanksgiving and Canadian Christmas or Boxing Day is similar, with 2 paid days off, and many people using vacation days or companies shutting down completely because everyone wants to be off and spend time with loved ones. A friend and fellow diversity and inclusion professional advocates for paid stat holidays for all major religious and cultural events during the year. Just from my Chinese cultural lens, I can see why that would be supportive of an inclusive society. I know in Judaism, Islam, and other religions, there are multi-day celebrations or ceremonies that begin at sunset the day before, which aren't currently accommodated in Canadian statutory or corporate holidays. Some religions have weddings and funerals that cover multiple days. I am not saying in this one video that we should immediately add a bunch of paid stat holidays in our workplaces. There are obviously a lot of considerations to be discussed. And by the way, there are really good arguments for financial and productivity benefits, not just costs, to doing this. My point is, to be truly inclusive of the diverse cultures, religions, and ethnicities in our workplaces, we need to broaden our understanding of the special days and events for those communities. And we can support them by offering flexible time off so they can celebrate them in ways that are meaningful to them. And by flexible time off, I do not mean forcing them to use vacation days. That's not equitable when other people get to keep their vacation days for actual vacation. I think there's a North American misconception that cultural and religious events that aren't Christian or legally authorized are vacation, like lying on a beach somewhere. Is that how you would characterize Western Christmas or getting ready for your wedding? I myself tried asking for a personal day off for Lunar New Year at one workplace. According to the policy, personal days were given on top of vacation days under certain criteria, like religious festivals. Cultural holidays were not specifically listed in the policy. My boss told me I could use a personal day this time, but next year I would need to use a vacation day. I felt patronized, unvalued, and actually guilty, like I shouldn't have even asked for a non-religious, non-wedding, not important cultural activity. I don't know if my boss would have answered differently if he knew everything I've explained to you in this video. But I also didn't feel safe or invited to explain. I did not feel included. And the thing is, I really liked this workplace. I liked my boss. He was a good person. But even in a likable workplace with good people, my Chinese ethnicity was only acceptable as long as it didn't disrupt normal business operations. So I hope that you can see from my story how well-meaning HR policies and good people with good intentions still might not result in workplace inclusion and diversity. If you are in the privileged position of approving someone's cultural or religious time off, will you not only say yes, but take a moment to learn more about what they're celebrating? In addition to honoring their traditions, you'll also be strengthening your relationship. As we ring in a new lunar year, I wish you all good fortune, good health, and many blessings. And may it also bring fresh perspective and a fresh start to a more inclusive and equitable world. If you enjoyed this video, have your own story to share, or want to know more, please leave a comment or send me a message from my website, changinglenses.ca. Gong hei fa choi.